Over the next several lessons, we are going to learn about the important Settings API for working with plugins in WordPress. Now, we already looked at options, which is the ability to save data in the options table in WordPress using special WordPress functions. The Settings API is going to allow us to easily build forms in the admin area that we could use to edit our options table so that we're not just hard coding them like we have in the past. If we take a look at the Settings API plugin installed and come into our plugin page, we can see what we call a settings section. So this whole area here, starting with this header and coming down to this first field, is what's referred to as a section. If we come into other settings pages, we could see this is one big section here. This one has two sections, actually three set up. We could see them separated by the headers. And this is just a general term that we'll need to know about. So this is a section, and then we have a specific field. So we could see that there's a label custom text, and we could see that this field looks pretty much like all the other fields in WordPress. So this Settings API we set up programmatically, and then it will allow us to set up fields in this way. The nice thing is if we save this, it will automatically save it in the options database, and we could pull the information out just like we've seen in the past. So the Settings API is what we're going to use when we want to set up forms for the average user to be able to edit certain things that we need to save in the database. Now, like I said previously, sometimes you might want to use a hook and you'll be doing it programmatically, but when you want to allow somebody to edit one of your options that you're saving, you're going to do that through the Settings API. So over the next several videos, we're going to look at how to set up plugin sections, we're going to look at how to set up fields, and then we're going to look at how to add them to our own pages, as well as do something where we could add it to an existing setting page as well. Now, to do that, we need to be familiar with a couple terms. The first one we already know, which is a settings page, and we could add a new page using add menu page. And when we work with the Settings API, we will need to tell it what page we want to be adding our settings to. So this could be an existing page, which we'll look at, or most commonly, it's going to be one of your own pages that you're adding it to. So we'll pull the slug in from using add menu page. Then we need to set up a settings section. As I mentioned, there are sections of settings, and when we create our own settings, we need to add our own settings section first before we could add the setting fields. It may be the case that you're adding your field to an existing settings section, but commonly you'll be creating your own. Then finally, we have our setting fields. This is going to be using add settings field, which is going to be a pretty simple function, looks kind of similar to add menu page and add its settings sections, and it's going to have a callback function that allows us to build the actual form elements that we want. Finally, when we're actually building the form or building the settings form on a page, we're going to be using a combination of a form tag, a settings field, a do settings sections, a submit button, and a closing form tag. So I understand that this may not all make sense quite yet, but I just want to outline at a high level what we have, and then over the next several lessons, we will break this down and go step by step, showing how to use the very helpful Settings API.